What's going on, guys? My name is Mackenzie, and we're going to be going over a video on how to create a chat app using Laravel and Swift. It's going to be live coding, first time using OBS, so hopefully everything comes out good. Either way, let's just jump straight into it. So I'm going to be switching to my computer now. And all right, so now we're here. I have an empty Laravel project. It's just a regular Laravel project. And one of the first things we're going to be doing is the authentication of the app. So let's go into our routes. Let's just go into the API routes. And in here, actually, let's do our connection to the database. So we don't have a connection to a database yet. I'm going to be using MAMP as my database. So let me make sure that I have MAMP open. Let's get that started. So I'm going to start MAMP. And I'm also just going to name my database. Oh, okay. So once we have MAMP open, I'm just going to go to phpMyAdmin. I'm going to create a database for this. And I'm going to name this, we'll just name it Laravel. Close. So we have our database open. And here, Laravel 889. Everything looks good. We can go ahead and migrate this. So we open up the terminal, PHP Artisan migrate. And if you see what this does is give us the users table. Okay, so that's a good start. Next thing, we're going to be using this package from Laravel, which handles the authentication. So let's just go ahead and install this. You know what? We'll do this after we register users. So let's create an API to register users, because we can't authenticate without users, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this. And then in here, I'm gonna say just API, and I'm gonna name this register. And I'm gonna be using controllers, because we code clean. Off controller. I'm going to name this register. This is going to be a post. Alrighty. And then we can go to our terminal, the PHP Artisan, make controller called off controller. Make sure that's spelled exactly the same. Okay. Next step is to go inside of our off controller and create that function we just created called register. So public function register, and it's going to be a post, so we're going to use the request to grab data. So when we register a user, there's a couple things that we care about. One of those things being stuff that they send us. So let's validate what we get from them, from the body basically. And we're going to validate that we get a name and that the name is required. Next thing we're going to validate is that we get an email and that the email is also required. And so we pipe it and we say it's also unique. Making it unique makes it so we don't have a user with the same email, obviously. Next, we want to make sure they give us a password, and that is required. Awesome. Next thing we want to do is create our user. So if the validation passes, we can go ahead and register our user. One thing we want to make sure is that when we register our user, that we hash his password. So an easy way to do that is, so we'd say user, we're going to be using user, which imports it, by the way, unless you guys didn't, not sure if you guys saw that. And we're going to create a user. So we say name equals the request name, and then email equals request email, and password does not equal request password because we need to hash it. So we say hash function, which also imports it, by the way. Once again, just want to make sure you guys see that. We say hash make, and we put the value in here, and then we put the actual password in here. is going to go ahead and create our user. And what we're going to do after creating it, we're just going to simply just return the user to the API. So return user. Cool. So there is a register system. We're going to go ahead and now go back to the API. Go ahead and install this package. So go ahead and run that. We can go back to here and read what else it wants us to do. So it looks like it wants us to run this and do PHP artisan migrate. So we'll go ahead and do that. And it wants us to do this API, add that to the kernel. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just let this install. Okay, I'll run this command, PHP artisan migrate. There we go. And then the next thing it wants us to do is go inside of the kernel and add this right here. But we first need to import it. So let's go to our kernel. And let's go ahead and import this. Oh, wrong window. Let's go back. And it wants us to put it inside of API. So we'll go ahead, find API. There it is. Okay, what's the next step? Next step is we already did PHP artisan migrate. We have to give it a trait of has token. So we have to go ahead and import this again. Go to our model, which is going to be using our token, which is the user. Import it. Has token. There we go. So I think we should be all set now. I'm going to quickly go to the API route, and I'm going to duplicate this one and name it login. Just going to put a comment called off, login, and login. There we go. Now we can go ahead and create this function called login. Going to go ahead and duplicate this. Name this login. We're going to make sure we validate that he's sending us the email. The email and password. And then we're going to be doing some logic in here. Luckily, I believe Laravel gives us an example on how to use the token. So let's go ahead and look at this. Let's go scroll down. I was looking at this before. I saw an example. Here it is. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and we're just going to edit it to work for our example. So we validate the input, make sure that we're getting email and password. We're going to go ahead and validate that the user exists. We're going to validate that the password is his. If it's not his, that during an exception, we're simply just going to say return. And we're going to return an array or a JSON basically saying error, and the error is going to be this. So go ahead and copy that, put it there, and we could delete this. So if the password's wrong and the user doesn't exist, go ahead and spit out that error. If it does exist, we're going to create the token. We don't have a device name. We're just going to say my token. And here they're just printing out in plain text. I kind of like the JSON format, so we're just going to say return token, and in here we're just going to copy this and paste it in here. And there we go. We should have a login system working. We're going to go ahead and test this before moving on. So let's go ahead and run our server, PHP artisan serve. And in here, we can go ahead and create a, well, I think I have an empty one right here. Cool. So PHP localhost. And the first one is register. And that takes body. Let's just make sure we give it some headers. So we want to say that we're going to be accepting application JSON, and that we're going to be sending it JSON as well. Okay, Next thing we want to do is in the body, we want to say what we're giving it. I mean, what we need. So we have to give it a name, email, and password. Name's going to be Mackenzie, mackenzie@me.com. And Mac123 is the password, super secure. Want to change this to a post. Click register. And there we go, we get a user. And if I try to submit this one more time, it fails because of that unique statement. Sweet. And then also, if I forget a field, it should validate. And well, yep, the data was not given. The email field is required. Sweet. So we're getting actual validation, super easy in Laravel. You can go ahead and save this route inside this collection I made named chat. This way when we're making the app, we don't have to open the Laravel project. We can just look at our Postman. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this now. And in here, I'm going to change this to login. And in the body, I'm just not going to pass the name. And there you go. We created a token. Wow, that's amazing. Super fast login system using Laravel. So that is done. We can go ahead and let's just save that. And I'll just go ahead and rename this to login. Cool. So that is a basic login system using Laravel. The next video, we're going to go over how to do the chat. So stay tuned for that. And yep, catch you guys there. See you guys.